Hi, Agnes. I hope you're okay. We'll just wait a couple of minutes for everyone to come. But as you are joining, if you want to, in a chat, to say your name, where you're from, and also which setting you teach in, that would be fantastic. Hi, Jane. Oh, from Sicily. That's amazing. Thank you very much. So yeah, for those who've just joined in, if you want to write your name in the chat, where you're from, and also which setting you teach, that would be fantastic. We'll just wait a couple of minutes and then we'll make a start. Hi, Suzanne. I hope you all had a nice weekend. Here it's very sunny. I'm in Lancashire, so I don't know if it's the same for you where you are. Oh, nice. It is, yeah. Hi to the people who are just joining in. Nice to have you here. Thank you so much. If you want to write your name in the chat, where you're from, and the setting where you're teaching, that would be fantastic. And then we'll just start in a minute or so. Hi, for the people who've just joined in, I can see the number increasing. If you want to write your name in the chat and where you're from, maybe which languages you teach, the setting where you're teaching in, that would be fantastic. Okay, so I'll just share my screen and then we'll be able to start. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see my screen. So my name is Jennifer Wozniak-Rush. I'm a secondary teacher. I teach in East Lancashire and I teach French as well as a bit of Spanish. So thank you very much for coming to my session. And my session is about opening their eyes to the world in front of them. So although we are in 2022, we still have too many students who have not been outside their local area. So what can we do as languages teachers to ensure we give all our students as many opportunities and experiences as possible? So really this session will give you some practical ideas and some websites to use so that all our learners, all our pupils can develop their cultural capital through language learning and without as well costing us a lot of money, because when it comes to cultural capital, it doesn't necessarily mean a trip abroad. It's also what all the other things that we can do in the classroom. So why cultural capital is so important? Well, first of all, so I work in a school in East Lancashire, and it's quite deprived where I work. And we've got a really high number of disadvantaged students. So we've got 62.9 disadvantaged students, which is, quite a lot. And quite a lot of our students have not been outside their local area. So it's thinking about all the things that I can do as a languages teacher, just to open their eyes to the world in front of them. So I just wanted to share you some ideas that I use. So the process of teaching a foreign language should imply teaching the cultural aspect connected to such language and not just its grammar and vocabulary. So it's really thinking about, what culture have you integrated in your lessons? Do you plan for it? Is it just as a one-off? When do you do some culture? Do you do it like for special events? Do you do it like very regularly? And what kind of resources are you using, as well? So really, for me, obviously languages, we've got the 4 skills. We've got, reading, listening, writing, and speaking. But for me, culture is also that 5th skill. And cultural capital is so important. And it is important, as I said, we need to make sure that we motivate our students and that they can see that, languages is a lot more than what is being done in a classroom. So it's really key, in my experience, to do as much as possible with culture, because it's also help motivating our students. So why is cultural capital so important? Well, because we've still got some Key Stage 4 students. So if you're not in the UK, Key Stage 4 students are the students who are usually, 14, 15, 16 years old, that do not know that French and Spanish are spoken in a lot of different countries, and not only in France and in Spain. And unfortunately, that's the truth. We've got loads of our students who do not know that French is the official language of the Olympics, with English. We still have loads of students who do not know that Spanish people do not open their Christmas presents on the 25th of December. So there's loads of things like that are completely part of our role as languages teachers to, show them. And actually, they want to know more. They ask so many questions. So it's thinking about all those things. So really, it's thinking about where to start. Where should you start? Because, culture is so big, and, we could teach only culture in itself without even teaching the language, because there's so much that could be covered. But it's really talking about, what does culture mean? What does it mean for you? What does it mean in your context, for your students, for your school? And is it only festival? Is it only facts? Is it when you use, French, Spanish names, or Spanish names of towns or things like that? And it's also thinking about how and when do you want to incorporate that culture? So do you do it as standalone lessons? So do you do like a Christmas lesson? Do you do like an Easter lesson? Do you do Dia de los Muertos, as a one-off lesson? Or do you spend more time? How is that planned? Because yes, we have schemes of work, of schemes of learning, whatever you call it in your school, but that should have a massive part in it. Is it done for homework? Is it everywhere in your curriculum? And also, most importantly, is how is that being taught as well? So planning is absolutely key. Okay, it's really key that actually, just like you would plan your grammar progression, your phonics progression, your vocabulary progression, it's thinking as well about how you're going to plan that culture. Where is it going to take place on your schemes of work, and how you're going to teach it? So the step 1 really is to discuss about what we'll be incorporating within the topics taught and what will be covered as a one-off. So in my context, there are things that we teach in a series of lessons, and that would be like more a project. And there are some cultural elements that we teach as a one-off. So like, for example, when it comes to Christmas, it will be like a kind of a one-off lesson. However, we've planned very carefully on our schemes of work what we are going to cover in year 7, in year 8, in year 9, in year 10, and in year 11. Because we realized, and I'm sure it might be exactly the same for you, but you know, you might have done like a quiz about how we celebrate Christmas in Spain that you might have used, you know, with a certain year group. And then the year after, you've got, so let's say that you've done it with year 8. The year after, you've got another year 8 class. You do the same, but actually you realize that your colleague used your resource for year 7, so they've already done it. But if it's planned on your schemes of work, and you know that in year 7, it might be a quiz. In year 8, it might be like studying a Christmas song. And in year 9, it might be something different. But that needs to have, you know, you need to have a discussion with your team, and that needs to be planned. Step 2 is like mapping it. As I just said, it's really important to know where you're going, why you're doing such and such thing. So then I want to spend the bulk of this session just sharing a lot of ideas of things that you could use from tomorrow in your lessons. And most importantly, things that won't take you too long as well to put together, because I know we're all so busy, and sometimes we've got those wonderful ideas, but not necessarily the time to do what we want with it. So here we are. So I'm French, as you must have heard. So I came and live in England. So I came 12 years ago now. And I've always done with my year 7 classes, starting with teaching them, you know, comment ça va? So how are you? And my classes in year 7, they can tell me how they are and a reason for it. And it's only last year, so after 11 years of teaching, that I've realized that I have never, ever told my classes that French people greet by doing la bise, so the kiss on each cheek. And I was like, why? It's what I do every single time when I go to France, when I greet people. But why have I not shared that with my students? So what we've decided to do with the department is just to put something together. So it's just one slide. So one slide explaining to them what is la bise and how French people greet each other, okay? And then we've got a little video that we found on YouTube just showing them how it works. So our year 7 had to read the information and watch the video for homework. And then when they came back the next lesson, it was fascinating because a lot of year 7 actually wanted to practice and they wanted to do la bise with others. So obviously there were some that didn't want to, which is absolutely fine, but they were like, oh, miss, so is it true that you do that? I said, yeah, of course I do that, and then I explained that depending about where you are in France, you don't do the same number of kisses on the cheeks. So I said, where I'm from in Lyon, it's 1 on each cheek. But if you go down to Marseille, so I showed them on the map where Marseille was, and I said, it's actually 4. So you do. Then if it's in the north, it's 3. But again, the kids were like, oh my God, so it's little things like, it doesn't take a long time. And now that slide is done, everyone in the department can use it. And it's part of our schemes of work. It's part of something that we are going to do every single year. Okay. Then obviously we can also link culture with the phonics. We know that teaching phonics is so important. So when you teach your phonics, so like for example, if you're a French teacher, we know that in French there's a lot of silent final consonant. Okay, so let's practice. So we need to tell them that we don't say Paris, we say Paris. We say Nantes, we say Cannes. So actually use real places you know, so the students can practice. Also, you know, with the French name, when you do your work on phonics, use names of French people, you know, Joséphine, Julien, Gilles, Jérôme. I mean, anyone that you know that you want. And same in Spanish with specific sounds. Okay. You know, you can always use name of places, and it's just bringing a bit more, you know, a bit more culture. It's also thinking about, you know, all the idioms as well that you can teach. So in French, when we do the topic of personality, we teach them il est malin comme un singe, because again, you can't really translate that literally. You know, it's like he's a bit like he's a cheeky monkey, if you want, but they absolutely love it. Or, you know, we say, you know, when something like costs a lot of money, French people say ça coûte un bras, like it costs an arm. But you see in English, you will not use the same, you know, the same sentence. So it's making sure that you can also, you know, include your idioms, you know, Spanish idioms, French idioms, you know, in your lessons. If you do the topic of food, do you look at a real recipe of something, you know, from the country, you know, where you speak that language? And again, that is something really easy, you know, really easy to do. So, for example, in French, we look at the recipe of, you know, when we do les crêpes, les madeleines, you know, and you know, and so on. And also you can link it with food tech. So you could talk to your food tech department, and then they could use the recipe in French and actually cook it for real with their food tech teacher. And so it's something easy that can be done, but that can be quite powerful. You know, also using photos of cities, you know, of Spanish, French-speaking countries when doing the topic of town, okay? Don't use their town, don't ask them to describe their town, make them research a city and they can describe that city. And also try to think about not concentrating only on France and Spain, but also some of the Spanish speaking countries or some of the French speaking countries, just to again opening, you know, your students' eyes. Music, there's so much that can be done about music. When we do the topic of music, we do a bit of the X Factor, and we listen to a lot of Spanish songs, but again, not only Spanish from Spain, but you know, from a range of Spanish speaking countries, and same in French. When we do the topic of school, we compare school system. So, you know, my students in French lesson, they're fascinating that in France, we don't wear school uniforms, because obviously here they do. You know, the school day is very different. The subjects are different. There are some subjects that we don't do in France, but that they do here. So it's just making sure that you use that opportunity to try to bring as much culture as, you know, as possible. Again, when you do the topic of family, so we teach the topic of family in both French and Spanish in year 7. But again, you know, use the Spanish royal family, for example, so that the students are aware, yes, we've got the royal family here in, you know, in the UK, but there's a royal family in Spain as well. Do you know who they are? Or let's study, you know, let's study them. And telling the students, you know, their story and things like that. Or in, you know, in French, you know, I tell them, I said, well, I call my mom maman, like you would say, like mommy, or papa for, you know, for daddy. So because obviously they know mère, père, and so on, but it's like those little things that they're more likely to remember because it is like linked to something that they can also relate to. You can also look at the story of Diego Maradona and his family, you know, for homework. So as I said, loads of different things that, you know, that can be done. Someone has put in the chat, lyrics training is awesome. Absolutely right. Every time you do some songs, there's absolutely loads that can be done for all sorts of different topics. There's also the Merry Glasgow magazines that I've used for numerous years in French and in Spanish. And again, it's just like one page. It's not necessarily linked with, I've not taught them all those words, but it's just showing them, if you give your students like an article of something that you find from a magazine, but actually they can understand a lot of words, even if we've not studied them, which help as well with motivation. Showing them, 10 expressions with the word dog, and again linked with some of the idioms and things like that. And what I do, I might just display it on the screen and just ask the class, oh, how do you say such and such, and again they absolutely love it. We talk about Asterix, that's very famous in France and in Belgium, so we'll we go through that, and it's just like a few questions that we might do. So like find the French for those words in the text, or translate a couple of sentences. Here I've put every time like a link, and I will send you a copy of the PowerPoint right at the end of the session. You'll be able to take a photo of it, and that will take you to my resources. So there's all the links as well that can be found, and you've got an awful lot of different magazines to look at Asterix and Obelix. You could also use paintings. So like in French, when we do the topic of a town, and we look then at describing your house and your bedroom. So we use the Van Gogh famous painting, and we look at where Arles is located in France. And then we use that painting to describe the bedroom. Then we compare, we ask the students to compare their own bedrooms to Van Gogh's bedroom, so they can use comparative and superlative. But again, it's just bringing a bit of culture, because probably they've never seen that painting. And it's just like, as I said, just opening their eyes a bit more. My brother is an estate agent in France. But even if you do not have a brother that's an estate agent, you can still do this activity. But when we look at townhouses and so on, so I just give them a website, so a website of a real estate agency, and with a name of, with a list of questions. So they need to find and name a house that has 4 bedrooms, find a name, an office to rent, or, things like that. But obviously the website is in French or in Spanish, if you pick a Spanish one, and they obviously have to read the information in French or in Spanish to be able to answer your questions. But again, here they're interesting. And because I've put the picture of my brother, obviously I got rid of his email address and his phone number. But like, my students were like, oh my God, Miss, that's your brother. I was like, I know, it's my brother, yes. But then they wanted to know more, because it's almost like you giving them a bit of yourself as well. And, we know that relationship can have a massive, impact as well on motivation for our students. There's loads of virtual tours that you can use. So there are virtual tours of cities. There's loads of virtual tours of museums, caves, castles, stadiums, pyramids, an awful lot of things. So here what I've done, I just put an example of few of them, but there's an awful lot, on the internet, and it's just like a proper virtual tour. So it's like almost like taking them into that city or into that castle or into that stadium. And again, the kids absolutely love it. So, the boys in my classes who are massive football fan, when we look at, the stadium in Barcelona, they're just like, oh my God, it feels like we're inside it, and again, then they don't mind doing the activities then linked with it. So the type of activities that I might do with that, I might do like a true or false, or like a treasure hunt. So I said, so if it's like a virtual tour of a city, I said, you all start, and I give them a name of a place. And I said, you need to, and I give them like direction so they can find like where the treasure is, and they need to tell me, in which place it is. Or you could just ask them to describe that city, or you can ask them to describe an area of the town or a monument in the target language, and people try to, they have to find which one it is that you are describing. Or the pupils choose an area of the town or a monument that they pretend to be and they pretend to be like a tour guide, and they must describe it for a group of tourists in the target language, so they can use like, videos, PowerPoint, and so on. Or they can also create like an advertisement to encourage, people to go there. So loads of different activities that, that could be done. So here's an example. That's where I'm from. I'm from Lyon. And here is a virtual tour of Lyon. And every time you click to like either like Lyon 2, Lyon 7, Lyon 3, it will, zoom in and show them, the most famous monuments, parks, within the city. And it's all like, 360. So they really feel that they are there. And again, I'm from Lyon, all my family lives there. So it's important for my students to also know my story and so on. And they come back with so many questions because they are genuinely interested. Again, when we do the topic of town, it's trying to find, of school, it's trying to find, articles that might be relevant for our students. So loads of things here about, about school. So like what will be a school day in Paris and in Casablanca, because yes, we speak French in Morocco. So what are the differences when it comes to school? What do we do in France? What do we do in Morocco? Just as an example, or it could be, in Quebec, loads of different places. Looking at poems as well. So that poem, I really love doing that poem in Spanish. And then when we've studied that poem, what the students then have got to do is to write their own. But if you look at the pattern, you can see no puede and then a lot of infinitives. So it's then for the students to find the infinitives that they want to use and so on. And they create some fantastic work. And again, it's bringing a bit more authentic materials to your lessons. So as I said, then once we've studied that, we will move to my students writing, a poem themselves. So using authentic materials with all topics, so like using, French, Spanish sportsmen, actors, authors, singers, painters, TV shows, films, tweets, absolutely anything, linked with the topic of leisure and technology. You can use your virtual tours for town or holidays. You can use clips or videos, like when you do the topic of pets. So we always do the topic of pets, but then in France, there's a very famous zoo, it's called Le Zoo de Beauval, which is very, very famous. And there's some fantastic videos on YouTube. So we use those part of our lessons. So yes, a panda, an elephant, or things like that are not part of our schemes of work, but actually they are cognate, and there's an awful lot of words that our students can understand, and it's bringing that culture as well to the table. Using extracts, from documentaries, using poems, articles. I don't know if you know the website called Un jour une actu. If you teach French, Un jour une actu is fantastic. It's very short articles, and there's also some short videos, and it's really, really good. Or sometimes what I do, I just go on the internet and just type faits divers, and I've got all sorts of like crazy stories. And again, the students, really like trying to understand what it is about and so on. Using recipes when you do, the topic of food and so on. So here I've just put some links for you. So if you teach Spanish, there's some links for a website where it's like very short articles, but adapted for, high school students. If you teach French, there's Un jour, une actu. Then if you don't know Suzy, I would highly, highly recommend you to go and have a look at Suzy's work. She has created some small books. It's Les Aventures de Polly, and in different places. So we've got Polly in Morocco, Polly in Switzerland, Polly in Belgium, Polly in Switzerland. There's like different places, and it's like short books written in French, but the French is very accessible for our students, and it's showing, what they eat in that country, some famous monuments, some like it's fantastic. And she's also created some calendars of culture in different languages. So like, for example, if you look at the November month, she will have put all the different events that are happening, not only in France, but also in Spain and also in Germany. So I strongly advise you to look at the work that Suzy is doing. Then I've also put over a useful website and channels. So have a look at that. Again, if you like using songs in your lesson, I advise you to look at the work from Stephen Fawkes, because again, there's loads of songs that you can use. Lyrics training is also very good, and so on. What we also do, part of our schemes of work, so in year 7, year 8, and year 9, part of our schemes of work, we study a film. So in year 7 Spanish, we will study Encanto. And the reason why we do it is that because our students have covered the topic of family, they've covered the topic of personality, of physical descriptions, free time, and so on. And Encanto is perfect to talk about a family, physical description, personality, and so on. So we study that film to reuse all the vocabulary that we've taught them during the year. In year 8, we look at Coco, and they do Coco part of, at that time of year when we do El Dia de los Muertos. And then in year 9, they look at Zip and Zap, Zippy and Zappy. So that we do, that's what we have in our schemes of work in 7, 8, and 9. In French, we use Boule et Bill in year 7, because again, they've covered family, pets, physical description, and so on. So it's easy to use Boule et Bill for that. We do Le Petit Nicolas in year 8, because we've done the topic of town, we've done chores in the house and things like that. And also we can reuse what has been covered in year 7. So when it comes to personality, physical description, they can also in year 8 revisit what has been done the previous year. And in year 9, we do Les Choristes, because we do it when we do the topic of school. And we link it as well with music, and so on. But this is completely part of our schemes of work. So we will not show them the full film at once. So what we do is that we will show them the trailer first, then we will study the trailer. We will predict about what they think is going to happen in the film. Then we watch 20 minutes of the film, and then we study a bit. So like, for example, when it comes to Le Petit Nicolas, we have not taught them jobs around the house before they watch the film. But when it comes to that part of the film, we'll stop, we'll teach them all the vocabulary so they can use it, and then we'll watch a bit more. So then again, because we're not watching the full film all at once, the students want to learn because they want to watch more, and then they're on side and they're really keen and so on. So that's the way we've incorporated in our schemes of work. Then I just wanted to show you some practical ideas that you can use, but this time, they are not relating to a specific topic. And that also can be done, like, for example, for homework. So that was created a couple of years ago by Mr. Francis MFL, and it was shared during lockdown. And here is just a really easy homework activity that you could do. Where there's like loads of different things that the students can look at. So they'll play Monopoly with their family for homework, and they need to, you know, pick a country. And again, it cannot. I tell my classes that when we do it for French, they cannot pick France, and when we do it for Spanish, they cannot speak Spain. So it makes them research another country where that language is being spoken. So as you can see, you know, there's loads of different things that they can do. You know, what is the national anthem, draw the flag, what is the landmark, you know, what is the population, and it's just making them like research about a different country. What we do as well as part of homework, so we look at the Francophone world, and we give our students, you know, different activities to do. So they need to describe, a city, but again, we give them a choice of the places that they can pick. Then they also need to describe a personality, and again, so they can pick whoever they want, but we always give some choices in case some students have no idea who to pick. So again, you know, at the moment, the boys are massive fans of Kylian Mbappé, which is one of the French footballer. He plays for the PSG, and he plays as well for the French team. So, loads of our students will pick that. But if others do not know what to pick, then we give them, some choices. We do as well, so when it comes to January, February time, we teach them about le Carnaval de Québec and what happens during the Carnaval de Québec, because it is a massive event there. And, we show them, yes, in most parts of Canada, English is being spoken, but all the Quebec region, they speak French. So then we look at Quebec city specifically, and we talk about le Carnaval de Québec. So we show them, où est le Québec, okay? Telling them that obviously in Quebec they speak French, but they've got a different accent from the French from France. So we talk about that. We talk as well about the fact that some of the words are slightly different. And then, so we do that with year 7, and we do it in French. And actually they understand so many words, because like I will guide them, but then they can understand it. So I said, oh, when do you think the carnival started? Well, straight away, they know it's 1954. Then I said, oh, let's look at this snowman. Let's look at un chapeau rouge. Which color is the hat? I said, oh, red. Okay. Une ceinture multicolore. Oh, ceinture is a belt. So what color is the belt? And then again, and I make them realize that they can actually understand quite a lot without being linked with necessarily a topic in itself. And then we just do like an activity where I show them loads of different pictures about what is happening during the carnival. And I put the picture on one side and the words in French on the other side, and they just have to match it up. And again, I said, start with the one you understand. So when they look at number 1, they know that crepe is like, like pancakes and things like that. So although I tell them it is not pancakes, so they do this one. Then they know that neige is a snow. But then, sculpture is, obviously la sculpture, it's like a cognate, so they can understand that really quickly. And some are a bit harder for them to guess, but that's okay. Little things that we do as well, an article about, April Fool, and I tell them what French people do. So, all the kids in France, they will get some paper, they will, cut that little fish, and they will put it on someone's back without them noticing. So again, when I do that with year 7, they absolutely love it, and then they want to do it. So, we spend like 10 minutes in the lesson doing that, just little things like that, and it's just, make them interesting and make them want to know more about, the culture. Roots into Languages also do a language immersion challenge. So if you just type Roots into Languages, the West Midlands, there's the language immersion challenge with loads and loads of resources. And again, I strongly advise you to have a look at that. It's all done for you and it's fantastic. And it's free as well, so you don't have to pay for it, which is always a plus. The British Council have put as well some language challenge, and they are in so many languages. So there's the German one, the French one, the Spanish one, the Arabic one. I think there's a Chinese one. There's about 7 and 8 different ones. And again, it's like different challengings that the students can do. So like, for example, we've used that for European Day of Languages, where we've put some challengings from different European countries. Some links as well. So I've mentioned the polyglot story from Susie, but I don't know if you're also aware of TeachVid, where there's an awful lot of videos in French, German, Spanish, Italian, English. So to have access to all the resources, you have to pay. I don't subscribe to it, and the free version still gives you an awful lot of videos. So again, I would advise you to have a look at it, because there are things for Valentine's Day. There are like famous songs. There are current songs. There's conversations, with different people, an awful lot of things. Here is an idea as well that I use when I do food. So I've talked to you about using recipe. So I will use, so that's the Easter cake that they could make. So I would give them obviously the instructions in French, and then some just comprehension questions in English. And everyone in the class have to answer those comprehension questions in English. However, I also give them the options. If you want to bake the cake, then it's absolutely fine, you can do. I do not make it compulsory, because I know that some of our students might not necessarily have the ingredients of things like, or things like that. So they all have to do, the questions. But then quite a lot of our students have a go at the cake, and then they're so proud, taking a picture of it and sending it to me, on our homework platform. For Christmas, I don't know if you know the website, but it's called Euroclub Schools. And again, I know that it is in Spanish, French, I think there's Italian. I can't remember if there's German or not. But there's like different languages available. And again, there's loads of cultural resources on it. There are like some jokes in French or in Spanish, Italian, and so on. Here it's a Christmas quiz. So our year 7 do that little information hunt. And as I said, there's absolutely loads. And again, it is for free. So I advise you to, to have a look at that. In my school, 3 times a year, we have all school reading week. So when we have all school reading week, in MFL, we also make sure that we study a text or a story, but that the students will know. So like, for example, when we do the Hungry Caterpillar, well, obviously they know that story so well from when they were, a toddler or, a young kid. So then when we do it in French, well, they know what's going to happen. We look at Key Stage 4, we look at Le Petit Prince, or sometimes we just do like an activity, as you can see on the slide, in Spanish, where we've put like very famous books, and obviously, what are their titles in, in Spanish. So easy things to, to do, but that are very powerful. We do the Griffalo, so we do it as well, in French or in Spanish. We're going on the bear hunt that we do as well in French and in Spanish, because again, it's a story that the students know. So then they already know what's going to happen. So it's easier for them to understand the French and the Spanish. As a starter, we use a range of articles, if you want. So like, for example, we've done something about everything about chocolate, because the 1st of October is the cocoa and chocolate day. And so, you know, again, I've just put that as a starter activity, but it was fascinating because all the students could understand. It's so easy to understand, but they thought, oh my God, it's like from a real article. And it's just, again, boosting that confidence. When it comes to, you know, a famous scientist, well, we show them an article in Spanish about that, you know, when it's the science week, well, we're trying to do something in MFL. Then something that happened to my parents last year for the first time, the sky became all yellow, orangey. And like all the cars were like covered in a kind of sand, because it's the sand from Sahara that came all the way to to France. So again, I've showed them an article like that, and I asked my family in France to take some pictures of the streets, the sky, and so on, and then I've showed them the the real picture. But it's just like things like that that make the students interested. And I guess as well, it's thinking about, why learning a language when everyone speaks English? Well, in my context, we definitely need to change that mindset. And we've started to put things in place. We are far from being there, don't get me wrong, but we had to start somewhere. So those were just some of the ideas of what, we are doing. But I just hope that, you did find it, useful. What we've done as well is that we link languages with careers. So we had a motivational speech last year by David Binns. David Binns came to our school to talk to our students to explain how languages has helped him, with his, business, and how successful he is now thanks to languages. But when he was at school, he didn't realize that languages were important and didn't really, care about languages. So it was really interesting for our students to listen for someone that is not a language teacher and that is not from their school as well, saying all the messages, don't get me wrong, but we keep saying, but sometimes when they also hear it from someone else, the penny drops. There's also little, do you know that we use? So we try to find like little facts about languages that we will incorporate as starter activities. I don't know also if you have to link careers as well. If you're not in the UK, but in England, we need to make sure that careers is also part of our lessons. So I have put a YouTube link that explains to our students, how languages help in your career. We also still do some, some trips. So we take our students to the Home in Manchester, the Home Cinema. So they can watch Les Vacances du Petit Nicolas and then do some work on it. We also make links with our university. So we go to University of Cumbria, and the PGCE students put a day for our students in French and in Spanish. So again, that is very popular, and it's nice for our students as well to raise aspiration and take them to a university to see what it's like. Our year 11s, we take them to a tapas restaurant, in December. So again, you can also do trips without necessarily going abroad, but still linking it with, with languages. Here we had some links with UCLan, a university in Preston, and it's the Worldwide Skill event. And again, it's loads of activities that we did. We did simultaneous translation. They could learn a language for 30 minutes. So make links with your universities, because they might provide something for you that is really, really, really good. And then our year 7s and some of our year 9s got pen pal letters. So we've got links with a school in France and we write letters, and the students, they just love it, absolutely love it, because now nothing is written, they use their phones all the time, but actually getting that letter from France, from students in another school, they just want to learn. And then, like just my year 7s, they were just like last year when we did it, they were like, but Miss, we've not learned how to ask loads of questions. You need to teach us how to ask questions. So it was actually a great opportunity because they wanted to use it for a purpose. So that worked really well. And we also use the Onati Play. And the Onati Play are quite expensive. So what we do to make it affordable for us is that we invite other schools. So by inviting other schools, it means that the price can go down massively, and it makes it like really reasonable. And it's good because all the actors are native speakers. It's funny. So again, I would advise you to have a look at that. One of the things that we do as well is that I've got MFL club, and my club is teaching some of the year 9s to teach French in primary. So then they go to a primary school and they teach a topic in French, and it's my year 9 delivering the session, and made me so proud of them, so proud. It's a lot of practice, and that's why we do it as a club. But then when we go to primary, it's just amazing. You would never think that they were year 9s. And I would definitely not be able to do the same, when I was their age. So that's everything. Sorry, I just ran over 5 minutes, but I've put a QR code here. So if you just scan that code now, that will take you to my Google Drive, and you'll have a copy of the resource. So yeah, but thank you so much for your for your time. And as I said, if you've got any questions, feel free to contact me on Twitter or to email me, and I'll be more than happy to answer all your questions. But thank you so much for coming to the session. I hope it was useful, and enjoy the rest of the afternoon. De nada, Maggie. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Bye.